Hello! This is Tree Junk and Stuff. We're sitting at the kitchen table. No, right now we're at Dan's place. You can see this is a really tall ash tree. We got a rope. We got a rope winch. We're using some carabiners. We're using some knots in the rope called a bowline on a bite. And this tree, as you can see, is real close to a bunch of other tall trees, so we wanted to use a tall hinge and the rope to help us. We could have used wedges, but I just prefer not to use wedges because I don't. That's probably the only reason. It's kind of like saying, why does somebody always use a certain pan to bake a cake? And it's, well, because they always did. So, yeah, wedges rely on the strength of the hinge wood and the integrity of the trunk, and a rope trusts the integrity of the whole trunk, not just the hinge wood, to a certain degree. Anyway, I would like to debate that with somebody who uses wedges all the time. Someday, maybe, like and subscribe and leave your comments. Positive or negative. We'll probably never delete any negative comments. Not. Anyway. Nah. It's not about the comments. And this video certainly isn't meant to be like all that educational, because you can't see anything as we have this camera stationary. This is one of our first videos. But as you saw, we slowed down the video a little bit so you could see the tree come down. We had Zach cranking on the rope winch. We had Keith taking up the slack through the rope winch, and we had Dan helping out pull the line through, I think. So we got a couple guys running a saw, cutting up the limbs and bucking, and everybody else is loading stuff into the trailer that's just to the right, out of view there. And it was a cold day in February, but good enough to get the tree down and get it out. It was a little soggy in the yard, but not too bad. I've got a polypropylene, which is a really slick braided throw line, lightweight, slick, slides over limbs, slides through limbs. I have a 12-ounce Weaver bag. I just threw it up by hand into that tree. And I basically tie what's called a pile hitch and 3 half hitches around the rope, underhand half hitches, so they'll cinch on the rope. So there's actually no knots when I try to pull the throw line up to put the rig line in the tree. And then I usually, sometimes I'll put the rope around the base of the tree, kind of like a basal anchor for folks who are used to climbing. And then the rope just goes up through the main V part, or like a limb up in the tree. But because this one had no limbs all the way up, I went on and tied a bowline on a bite and pulled that carabiner and the knot up as high as it would go on the tree. There's pros and cons to that whole thing. If you got a bunch of limbs down low, it's really hard to get the knot up high enough in the tree without getting it caught on lower limbs. So that's where a basal anchor lower on the tree, and then the line just going up through and around branches is a great quick option, because once you have the rope in the tree, you're basically done. You just got to make sure that the limb you're through and around isn't going to break out when you start putting tension on it. So yeah, we had a lot of help cleaning this up, and as you can see here, our friend Keith, he likes to joke around a bit. And he's the word. Anyway, we didn't notice this until we were editing the video. Anyway,
a real pleasant surprise.
Love you, Keith. Oh my goodness. So anyway, we're back to fast speed, so you don't have to sit through every twig and log cleanup here. But Zach cleaned up all the rigging, untied all the knots. In the rope bag and in the throw line bag, we always flake the ropes back in, which is basically kind of like running them through your hand and just letting them fall inside the bag where they go. We don't wrap them up, we don't coil them, twist them, or anything like that. And they just kind of go in the bag, and then you kind of shuffle the bag a little bit to get the ropes to go in the bottom and kind of stack. And then when you need them later, you just grab the correct end of the rope and it comes on out. So here we've got again a couple people cutting up the main trunk, and we basically just left all the logs for somebody to come back and pick them up later on. So there's a few other trees that Dan wants down at his place, but we just took care of this one today. And what else? I've got I don't know if I brought it on this trip or not, but I've got a cant hook, and it's really good. Instead of getting the saw all the way down to the ground and possibly getting it in the dirt or the mud, you can basically go, like most of the way through the log, and then use the cant hook to roll the log over, and then you just got a little bit to cut through to finish that log piece. So the cant hook comes in handy for doing that. It's obviously it's also possible just to have a few people jump on the log and try to help manually roll it over, but a whole lot easier with the cant hook. And then with the cant hook, pretty sure there's a right way and a wrong way. In other words, you can hook the cant hook on one side and you stand on the other and try to pull it toward you, but if the hook comes out of the log, it's going to hit you in the face. So the idea is you always put the hook on the metal hook on the low side, and you push up on the pole to roll the log. Yeah. So here we're loading up using a wheelbarrow to kind of save a number of trips and maybe help just having to carry logs and brush over. I've also got a couple of hand trucks that are I think even easier than using a wheelbarrow. With a wheelbarrow, you end up carrying a lot of the weight in your arms, and with a hand truck, most of the weight actually rides on the wheels, and you just kind of balance it and pull it, or sometimes even push it. It's not quite as safe to push a hand truck, but sometimes it works if you're going down a narrow pathway where you got rocks or landscaping on either side. Sometimes it's easier to just push some logs on a hand truck instead of pull them. But just my experience. So there's not much more here, but yeah, we hope to put some more videos out showing closer up some of the knots that we use and some of the techniques I use for getting the throw line in the tree, some of the techniques I use for getting the rope in the tree. Chain sharpening, which I think I may have decided that my favorite chain sharpening technique is to throw it away and buy a new one, but no, I try to sharpen stuff. I think some of the most important things with chain sharpening is just make sure you've got the right size rat tail file. That's critical. And on my saw, depending on which chain I have on there, an Oregon chain or a steel chain, I may need a different size rat tail file. So it's always important to make sure that you know exactly what file you need for what chain you have. So yeah, what's the dog's name? Barkley? No, not Barkley. That's a cartoon dog.
It could be Barkley.
Anyway, pretty soon you'll see a dog running around the video. Or maybe that's
We
on
have
the
to
other
find out
video.
what the dog's name was.
Yeah.